The rain had just stopped, leaving the city streets slick and reflective. Inside the towering glass facade of the corporate headquarters, the atmosphere was anything but clear. The newly appointed CEO, Adrian Cross, summoned an unscheduled meeting with key HR personnel and select junior staff. The reason? An internal breach of the company's equity policy during a recent hiring process. At the center of this breach was an external candidate, Maya Brooks, a highly qualified strategist with a robust resume and a 2-year employment gap due to caregiving responsibilities. Her scheduled interview had been dismissed prematurely by 2 senior hiring managers, Jonathan Price and Olivia Reed, who claimed the position was already filled. However, the dismissal was recorded under the firm's new compliance protocols, revealing bias and procedural neglect. Adrian, calm and deliberate, didn't allow excuses to derail the conversation. He directed HR to present the interview transcripts, cornering Jonathan and Olivia with evidence of their dismissive conduct. As the tension peaked, he delivered a clear message. A full audit of hiring practices was underway, and both managers would not be part of the company's leadership going forward. Meanwhile, Maya was invited back, not for an interview, but for a conversation with top executives and legal advisors. She entered the boardroom with composure, not asking for sympathy but asserting her worth. She clarified that she wasn't seeking validation, she knew the value she brought. She refused to shrink into silence, even in the face of performative inclusivity. An executive named Rachel Monroe offered her the role she was previously denied, but Maya declined. She had already decided to build her own firm, Luminary Strategies, focused on brand growth and elevating underrepresented voices. Her refusal wasn't a rejection out of spite, but a declaration of self-direction. The fallout at the company was swift. Internal emails revealed the leadership shakeup and third-party recruitment oversight. Employees whispered, confused and curious, while Adrian kept his door open, symbolizing a break from the old, opaque regime. Back at her home, Maya reflected with Adrian, revealed to be her partner, on the interview that started it all. He had encouraged her to go, not to test her, but to test them. And they failed. Maya's choice to walk away became the catalyst for change, not just for her, but for a company forced to reckon with the system it upheld. When Rachel later arrived with a formal apology and signed acknowledgement from the board, Maya didn't accept it as reparation, only as a start. Respect, she reminded them, didn't come in a folder. Maya's story closed not with vindication, but with quiet certainty. She didn't demand a seat, she built her own table. And in doing so, she became the wake-up call they didn't see coming. If you're enjoying this so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us grow and lets us keep bringing you more content like this. Plus, you won't want to miss what we have coming next. Trust me, it's going to be good. The boardroom was silent, the air thick with tension. Lucas Vane stood at the head of the table, his gaze fixed on the 2 senior hiring managers, Darian Knox and Elise Trammell. The evidence was irrefutable. The compliance protocols had recorded their dismissive conduct towards Simone Hale, revealing bias and procedural neglect. This isn't just about a single interview, Lucas began, his voice steady. It's about the integrity of our entire hiring process. Darian shifted uncomfortably in his seat. We followed standard procedures, he muttered. Lucas raised an eyebrow. Standard procedures that conveniently exclude qualified candidates with employment gaps? Elise opened her mouth to respond, but Lucas cut her off. Save it. The transcripts speak for themselves. He turned to the HR director. Initiate a full audit of our hiring practices. Effective immediately. The HR director nodded, making notes on her tablet. Lucas faced Darian and Elise once more. You will not be part of this company's leadership going forward. The room remained silent as the 2 managers processed the gravity of their situation. Meanwhile, Simone Hale sat in a different conference room, this time with top executives and legal advisors. She maintained her composure, her eyes steady as she addressed the group. I'm not here for sympathy, she stated. I know my worth. Janelle Bryn, one of the executives, leaned forward. We recognize the mistake that was made. We'd like to offer you the position you were previously denied. Simone shook her head. I've already decided to build my own firm, True Signal Strategies. My focus will be on brand growth and elevating underrepresented voices. Janelle nodded, understanding. We respect your decision. Back at Den's Hire and Row, the fallout was swift. Internal emails circulated, revealing the leadership shakeup and the initiation of third-party recruitment oversight. Employees whispered in the hallways, confused and curious. Lucas kept his office door open, symbolizing a break from the old, opaque regime. At home, Simone reflected on the events with Lucas, her partner. He had encouraged her to go to the interview, not to test her, but to test them. And they had failed. Janelle later arrived with a formal apology and a signed acknowledgement from the board. Simone accepted it, not as reparation, but as a start. Respect doesn't come in a folder, she reminded them. Simone's story closed not with vindication, but with quiet certainty. She hadn't demanded a seat, she had built her own table. And in doing so, she became the wake-up call they didn't see coming. But as she sat in her new office, a note arrived. Unmarked, it simply read, "This isn't over." Simone stared at the note, her mind racing. What did it mean? Who had sent it? The suspense was far from over. Simone stood frozen in the hallway outside the executive boardroom. The walls seemed to pulse with the echo of Lucas's voice, firm, final, and irrevocable. Elise and Darian had been removed. The hiring audit had begun. And the storm she hadn't planned to start had just become the company's reckoning. But it wasn't over, because just as she stepped into the private elevator, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. No name. No subject line. Just a file attachment. She opened it. Froze. There, buried in a string of internal calendar logs, was a meeting scheduled 3 days prior to her interview. Title: Internal Recommendation, Priority Consideration. Attendees: Elise Trammell, Darian Knox, and someone she hadn't seen coming. Janelle Bryn, the same executive who had offered her the role in that polished boardroom. The same one who had called the bias unacceptable. Her signature was on the document, marked as approved for alternate offer, internal only. Simone's pulse skipped. So it wasn't just Elise and Darian. They weren't acting alone. She hit the emergency stop button on the elevator. Everything paused, lights humming, air still. Her mind raced. Lucas had promised transparency, integrity. But had he seen this? Because if he hadn't, she exhaled, pressed the button again, and let the car rise. Upstairs, Lucas stood in his office, staring out over the skyline. The city looked clean from up here, polished, like nothing under its surface was festering. But he knew better now. The firm he'd taken over, Dens Hire and Row, was not just broken at the top. The cracks ran deeper. He was halfway through drafting a staff-wide notice when his door opened. No knock, no announcement. Simone stepped inside, phone in hand, screen facing him. "Tell me you've seen this." He took the device. "Read it once. Then again." Silence. "Janelle," he said slowly. "No, this wasn't part of the report." Simone narrowed her eyes. She was in that meeting, Lucas. She acted shocked. Condemned them. He looked up. She lied. She positioned herself, Simone said coldly. She knew the hire was already decided. She let me walk into that interview, knowing it was a closed door. Lucas looked at her, calculating. Then, we need everything. Every communication, every version of this file. If Janelle buried this, we'll find the rest. But Simone didn't move, because her eyes were on the glass wall behind him. A shadow moved across it, a silhouette too tall to be coincidence. Lucas turned, pulled the blinds closed with a sharp flick. "It's not paranoia," he muttered. "Not here." He turned back to her. "There's something else," she said. "That interview wasn't just recorded. It was flagged." Lucas blinked. "Flagged how?" She pulled up another file. One she hadn't planned to show yet. "Your compliance system? It uses keyword detection. Red flags when certain phrases are used. I requested a log of all flagged sessions for the month of March." She swiped. Stopped. There were 6. 4 with candidates of color. 3 with significant gaps due to caregiving or health. Lucas's face turned grim. "And all 6?" She said. "Same hiring managers. Same pattern. Interviews under 15 minutes. Notes marked unsuitable or off fit. Same department?" "Exactly." Lucas sat down. Hard. "You're saying this wasn't a one-time lapse?" "I'm saying," Simone said, "this was a system. A filtered track. They never had a chance." He looked at the screen again, then back at her. "I want to burn it down." "Then don't waste time asking permission," she said. Downstairs, Janelle Bryn stepped into her office. Her assistant tried to catch her eye. She didn't stop walking. Inside, she locked the door, turned off the overhead lights, and opened her private laptop. She knew the files were still in the system. But she also knew they'd be hard to trace if she moved fast. The priority candidate memo? Old news. It didn't prove intent. That's what mattered. They could call it internal preference. A gray area, not a smoking gun. She could ride this out. Her phone buzzed. Email. Subject, visible now. She clicked. One line. The candidate you buried is watching. She dropped the phone. By morning, Lucas had ordered a forensic IT team to comb through every flagged interview in the last 18 months. The firm's partners were silent, unsure whether to support the sweep or protect themselves. But it didn't matter. The engine was running. And then the twist came. Not from inside, but from the outside. A journalist. Business Weekly. She emailed Simone directly. I think we've been following the same thread. Attached. Excerpts of an unpublished feature story. Headline. Bias by design. Inside Denture's broken recruitment web. Simone read the first paragraph 3 times. It wasn't just one department. It was 5, each with mirrored patterns. Underrepresented candidates passed over despite qualifications, sometimes without interviews at all. And the source? A former Dens-hire recruiter. Whistleblower. Anonymous but documented. Simone stared at the screen. Everything she'd suspected was here. And more. This wasn't personal. This was institutional. She hit forward. Sent it to Lucas. No subject. No words. She didn't need them. 2 hours later, Lucas called an emergency exec meeting. Janelle showed up late. Everyone watched her. No one said a word. Until Lucas stood. He held up the article. Anyone want to explain this before it goes public? Janelle didn't blink. It's anonymous. We don't confirm or deny leaks. Lucas walked toward her. You signed the internal memo, Janelle. You greenlit a process that excluded external candidates by default. You called it prioritization. But what it was premeditated exclusion. Prove it, she said flatly. He didn't flinch. We will. A pause. Then he added, You're suspended, effective immediately. Gasps. One of the partners stood. Lucas, this is serious. Not as serious as keeping her in this room. Janelle stood slow. You think removing me fixes it? You think this ends with me? Lucas stared at her. No, it starts with you. She left. But as she passed Simone in the hallway, she didn't look angry. She looked amused. And that was worse. That night, Simone sat at her kitchen counter, the city lights spilling across the tile. Her phone buzzed again. A message. No name. One line. They're going to spin you as the problem. She stared. Then came a second message. An audio file. She played it. Janelle's voice. They're going to hang this on her. The outsider. Frame it like disruption. She had an agenda. She orchestrated this. A man replied. Voice low. Do it before the press hits. The file ended. Simone dropped her phone. Breathed in. Then exhaled. Long and slow. The game had changed again. They weren't just defending the system anymore. They were preparing to attack her. Lucas didn't sleep. By dawn, the firm's internal channels had started leaking. A sanitized version of events, presenting the leadership changes as strategic reassignments. The audit? Framed as a proactive equity enhancement. And Simone? Omitted entirely. Lucas slammed his laptop shut. Cowards, he muttered. He stood, grabbed his coat, and walked out into the hallway. Simone was already waiting by his door. She didn't speak, just held out her phone. He listened to the recording, didn't say a word. Until the end. They're trying to erase you, he said. I won't let them. Simone nodded. Then we have one chance. He raised an eyebrow. To do what? She looked him square in the eye. To leak it first. The article dropped that afternoon. Full transcript. Full context. Full exposure. It hit Business Weekly's site like a shockwave. Simone's name wasn't just mentioned. She was centered, not as a victim, but as a professional who caught a system red-handed and refused to play along. The emails flooded in. Support, praise, and threats. Lucas's phone rang nonstop. So did HR, legal, PR. Janelle's legal counsel issued a cease and desist. It was too late. The truth was out, and now the pressure shifted. To the board. Would they protect the brand, or confront the mirror? That evening, Simone found a handwritten envelope at her door. No name. She opened it carefully. Inside, one sheet of paper. Typed. Unmarked. It read, They're not done. Someone on the board helped write the policy. Check the name, R. Adele. She's not who she pretends to be. They're going to bury the audit next. You have 48 hours. No signature. Simone stared at it, then looked out the window. The storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. The note was still in Simone's hand. No signature, no letterhead, just one line scribbled in clean, assertive strokes. Check the 2019 compliance archives. Folder marked indigo. She didn't move for a long time. The paper trembled slightly between her fingers, not from fear, but from focus. Precision had kept her alive in this game. Now it had to sharpen. Simone took one breath, folded the note neatly, and slipped it into the back pocket of her leather-bound planner. She didn't ask who left it. She didn't need to. The handwriting had been printed, deliberately styled to avoid identification. But the weight of the message, the way it was delivered, the timing, this wasn't a gesture. It was a warning, and possibly an invitation. By the time she reached her car, the storm above the city had broken open. Rain hammered the windshield. Each drop felt like a countdown. She knew exactly where she was headed. Back inside the den's hire and row headquarters. The building after hours was quiet, but not empty. Security at the front desk barely looked up as she scanned in. Lucas had ensured she still had temporary clearance, though she doubted he knew she'd be back tonight. Not like this. Simone made her way to the elevator. Floor 19. Compliance and records. The walls buzzed faintly under the fluorescence as she stepped out. The corridor was narrow, the air colder than she remembered. She walked slowly, footsteps echoing against tile. Room 1907, archive access. She typed in her badge code. The lock clicked open. Inside was rows of digitized servers and a glass-walled terminal hub with biometric access to historical files. Normally monitored. Tonight, vacant. Someone had disabled the login monitors. Someone wanted her to find it. She stepped up to the console and logged in under her temporary guest profile. Limited access, but enough to navigate. Folder search, indigo. The results snapped up in seconds. One file. Marked. Indigo 19, HRC strategy, beta.dc. Restricted. Locked behind a dual authentication firewall. She tapped the screen again, pulled open the file info. Internal clearance, executive level only. She froze. The note had told her to check this folder, but hadn't said how to unlock it. And then, just as she leaned back, a soft digital chime sounded from the screen. The lock disengaged. She hadn't done anything. No request was made. But the file opened. Someone was watching. Simone didn't waste a second. Inside was a series of documents, 6 to be exact. Drafts of an internal policy program from 2019. The same year the company made public commitments to diversity reform. But this wasn't reform. This was strategy. Her eyes moved quickly, reading line after line of dense corporate doublespeak until the real message emerged. Selective merit coding, weighted risk profiles for cultural fit, internal bypass flagging. Simone's stomach turned. These weren't tools for equity. They were filters. Systems designed to flag, sort, and ultimately eliminate candidates who didn't fit a coded archetype. The files even included prototypes for auto-generating rejection rationale, phrases like insufficient alignment or overqualified volatility. A euphemism machine. It had been real all along. Not just bad managers making bad calls. This was institutional. And then she found the kicker. A list. Dozens of candidate names, each tagged, filtered, and discarded through this indigo protocol. Simone stopped breathing when she saw her own name. Simone Hale, strategic consulting candidate, flagged for trajectory ambiguity. Ambiguity. That's what they'd called a caregiving gap. She leaned against the console, heart pounding. She had always known something was off. But not like this. Not written. Not calculated. She copied the file. Every document, every line of metadata, onto a secure drive. Then she logged out. But as she turned to leave, the door to the archive room slid open. And there stood Janelle Bryn. "Didn't think I'd see you again tonight," Janelle said, voice smooth as glass. Simone didn't answer. She slid the drive into her coat. "You found it," Janelle said. Simone didn't flinch. "You left the note?" "No," Janelle said. "But I knew someone would." She stepped further into the room, letting the door close behind her. The lock clicked again. Simone remained still. "You want to explain what this is?" she asked. Janelle tilted her head. "It's legacy, Simone. That's what it is." "Legacy?" Simone repeated, voice sharp. "Every corporation of this size has its shadows. Ours just happened to be efficient." Janelle gave a soft, unbothered shrug. Indigo was never intended for public rollout. It was a containment strategy. For hiring volatility. Volatility, Simone said, the word tasting like blood. Janelle's eyes narrowed. The company was growing too fast. Too many unknowns in the talent pipeline. So yes, we created filters. Quietly. The board knew. Lucas didn't. Not until recently. Simone took a step forward. That file is going to bury this company. Janelle's smile didn't break. Only if someone above the noise listens. Right now it's just paper. Data. People like you think truth speaks for itself. It doesn't. It whispers. And by the time anyone hears it, the damage has been polished over. Simone's hands tightened at her sides. You're scared. Of you, Janelle said. No. Of exposure? Always. That's why I'm here. There was something sharp in her tone now. Not mockery. A warning. You're not the first to dig up indigo, Janelle added quietly. Simone's pulse surged. What happened to the others? Janelle stepped closer. They were offered exits. Some generous. Some final. Simone held her ground. Try me. Janelle smiled again, then reached into her coat and pulled out a sealed folder. She handed it to Simone. This was going to be delivered tomorrow anyway. Might as well save the courier fee. Simone took it slowly. Inside, a legal notice. Immediate cease and desist order. Breach of proprietary systems. Simone looked up. You're trying to silence me. No, Janelle said. We're giving you a choice. She stepped back. You leak indigo, and you burn every bridge. Not just here. Everywhere. You'll be labeled a hostile actor. No firm will touch you. Except I don't need them, Simone said. I've got my own. True, Janelle said. And if you walk away now, quietly, we'll let it grow. No interference. No buried complaints. We may even send clients your way. Consider it goodwill. Simone stared at her. She wasn't bluffing. This was the deal of a lifetime, or a threat in disguise. Either way, it was a trap. Simone didn't speak. She just turned and left. Back in her apartment, Simone placed the secure drive inside a small fireproof lockbox. Then she called Lucas. He answered on the second ring. I have something, she said. Lucas didn't ask what. He simply replied, come by. She arrived at his place an hour later, soaked through but steady. They sat at the kitchen table. She slid the drive to him. It's called Indigo. Lucas connected it to a private offline laptop. His face didn't change as he read, but his hands clenched. This was approved? By the board, Simone confirmed. Not you. Not compliance. But enough of them. He closed the laptop. This changes everything. Simone looked at him. I'm not here to ask what you're going to do. I know. I'm asking what happens when they come after you next. Lucas looked at her, something harder behind his eyes now. They already have. The next morning, headlines exploded. Not about Indigo, but about Lucas. An anonymous leak accused him of insider manipulation during the last merger. No evidence, no source, just enough to light suspicion. The war had started. Simone watched the coverage in silence. Janelle had made her move, but she'd made it too soon. Simone opened her email and drafted a single message. Subject line, clarity. She attached one file. Indigo 19, HRC Strategy Beta.dc. Sent it directly to a journalist she trusted. Then sat back and waited. Hours later, Simone received a package. No label. No return address. Inside was a single item. A flash drive. Unmarked. She plugged it in. Only one file. A short video clip. Grainy security footage. Simone leaned forward. There, captured in time-stamped clarity, was a scene from 3 months ago. Janelle, in a different office, handing an envelope to someone else. The man, not a board member, not a manager, but someone Simone recognized instantly. Her former client, the one who ghosted her right before she applied to Den's higher-end row. She hit pause. The frame locked. Everything changed. Again. Just us, Reese muttered, his voice tight, the blood drained from his face. The firewall flagged the sender as internal, but masked. No trace. Lucas closed the laptop with a soft snap that still managed to echo. Everyone out. Now. Chairs scraped back. Footsteps stumbled in retreat. No one argued. When the room emptied, Lucas remained seated, fists clenched, staring into the grain of the table. The words played again in his mind. We know what you buried. The files were never deleted. Simone stood in the adjacent hallway, watching through the narrow glass slit in the boardroom door. Her instincts flared. She hadn't seen the message, but she'd seen enough of Lucas to know this wasn't just about procedural misconduct anymore. Something deeper, older, more dangerous. She stepped inside without knocking. "You know what they're talking about?" she asked. Lucas didn't answer right away. He looked up at her, eyes haunted. "I thought it was gone. Years ago. Before I took the job." Simone frowned. "What was gone?" He leaned back slowly, as if something enormous had settled across his chest. "There was an initiative. Before my time. Project Harlow. Started under the former board. It was marketed as a leadership acceleration program." She waited, the pieces forming in her mind like jagged glass. Lucas continued. "But it wasn't about development. It was about data, internal assessments designed to rank cultural compatibility." He spat the last words like poison. "They used it to systematically shut out people like you, Simone. Under the radar. The data was sanitized before public reporting. The names, the notes, the blocks, they were buried. I found out after the board voted me in. I thought I had all the files destroyed." Simone's jaw tensed. "You destroyed the evidence?" "I tried. It wasn't whistleblowing back then. It was survival. If I had gone public without backing, they would have buried me too. But I swore I'd burn it from the inside." She stepped back. "So you knew?" "I didn't know it was still alive," he said, voice hoarse. "I didn't know someone else had the files." A knock shattered the tension. It was Zora, the company's new compliance officer, clutching a black envelope. "This came through the legal channel. No return address." Lucas opened it, hand steady but pale. Inside, a flash drive and a typed note. "You failed to erase the rot. Now the floorboards give way." Simone snatched the note. "They're not threatening you. They're warning you." Lucas nodded. "Someone inside wants this exposed. But they're not going through you. Because they don't trust me anymore." A pause. "Should they?" Simone asked. Lucas looked her dead in the eye. "That depends. Do you still want them to listen?" They said nothing for a long moment. Then Simone pocketed the flash drive. "I'll take this. I've got the connections now. My firm's clean. I'll run a forensic trace. You think whoever sent it wants you involved?" "I think they already know I am." Lucas exhaled. "Be careful." But it was already too late for that. True Signal Strategies was lit only by moonlight when Simone slid the flash drive into her encrypted system. She didn't call anyone, not even her team. Whatever this was, it was too explosive to risk leakage. The drive cracked open a folder tree. At the root, a series of audio files, scans, and internal assessments. Her heart froze when she read the first header. Subject S. Hail, recommendation, decline, per Harlow protocol. She clicked. A tinny voice, Elise Trammell, filtered through the speakers. "She has the credentials, sure, but she doesn't fit. Clients expect a certain aesthetic. She's sharp, maybe too sharp. Hard edges don't play well." Another file. Darian's voice. "Simone, we reviewed her, but it's a no. The energy she brings, it's too disruptive for team cohesion." Her hands trembled. Every reason they'd given. Every excuse. Documented. Systemic. But it didn't stop there. She scrolled further. Subject, Reese Callan, note, retain for cover. High optics. Subject, T. Jean, suggest inclusion for board visibility quota. Rotate out Q4. Every single one of them. Tagged. Labeled. Managed. This wasn't just bias. It was orchestrated. Simone leaned back, bile in her throat. They had engineered the company like a closed circuit. Inclusion was just a banner. They never meant to change. And Lucas? Had he really tried to kill this? Or had he kept just enough of it in the shadows to use when he needed leverage? She didn't know anymore. The next morning, before the sun rose, Simone was waiting outside Lucas's apartment tower. He stepped out, coffee in hand, startled. "I need answers," she said. He nodded. "Inside." She followed him up to the penthouse. Inside, sleek and sterile, not a single photo in sight. She dropped the drive on his glass table. "I heard everything. They blacklisted me. My name's in the core protocol." Lucas didn't look surprised. "I'm sorry." She flinched. "That's all?" "No, that's not all." He walked to a cabinet, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to her. Inside, a resignation letter. Signed. Dated for today. "I'm stepping down." Her eyes narrowed. "Is this damage control?" "No," he said. "It's the final move. The board has 36 hours to accept the audit results. I've given them my terms, either they clean house or I publish every file. My resignation buys the pressure to force it through." She stared at him, searching for the lie. "And if they refuse?" Lucas looked out the window, the skyline still bruised in early light. Then we burn it all down. Back at True Signal, Simone assembled her team. They didn't flinch. They didn't panic. They simply asked, "How far do we go?" She smiled, cold and certain. "All the way." They split into teams: tech, legal, press. The data was parsed, verified, triple-checked. A leak to the media wasn't enough. It had to be coordinated, targeted, timed. Within 24 hours, 3 outlets had drafted exposés. 2 journalists requested anonymity. 1 editor refused and went on record. The headline broke at midnight. Den's higher end rose diversity mirage, inside the algorithm that shut the door. The reaction was immediate. Employees staged walkouts. Clients demanded answers. The board issued a temporary freeze on leadership decisions. And Lucas? He disappeared. No messages. No press statement. No farewell. Only a voicemail on Simone's phone. "You lit the match. Now keep it burning. Whatever happens, don't let them rebuild on the ashes." 48 hours later, a courier arrived at True Signal. Another black envelope. Inside, a court summons. Simone was being sued for defamation, data theft, breach of contract. The plaintiff? Janelle Bryn, the woman who had offered her the job. The woman who had signed the apology from the board. Simone stared at the name, feeling the betrayal land like a knife. It was never about closure. It was about containment. But they underestimated her. Simone looked out the window. Below, cameras were setting up outside the Den's higher and row building. Above, a storm rolled in, and in her hand, the envelope trembled slightly as she pulled out the last page. A handwritten note in the margin of the summons. "Check the audit." She doctored it. "Everything you leaked, wasn't all of it. No signature. Only the truth. Still waiting. Still buried. To be unearthed." The note shook in Simone's hand. "Check the audit." She doctored it. "Everything you leaked, wasn't all of it." Her eyes swept over the handwriting. Not printed. Not typed. Ink from a real pen, uneven under her fingers. Someone inside had written this. Someone close to the rot, but not consumed by it. Her mind reeled. If what she leaked wasn't the full picture, what had been held back? And more important, why? She tossed the summons on her desk and turned to her secure drive. Pulled up the audit copy she'd received from Lucas. The one she'd been told was the final version. The one she had bet her name and her company's credibility on. She ran a comparison scan against the original file set from the anonymous flash drive. 2 discrepancies. One was a redacted name. The other, a missing appendix. Simone's pulse thudded. Whoever sent the warning was right. The audit had been doctored, but not sloppily. Not with brute edits. The files were duplicated, the metadata manipulated. Someone wanted her to leak a version that would seem like the whole truth, but still leave the real damage buried. She picked up her phone and called Reese. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Still nothing. The unease curdled. Simone got in her car and drove to his apartment. It was across the river, tucked in a quiet building with discreet security. The doorman recognized her. "He's not been back since Friday," he said. Said he was taking a break. A break? Simone stepped back, breath catching. This wasn't just about her now. It was about control, perception, spin, and Reese was either hiding or silenced. Back at True Signal, Simone called an emergency staff meeting. Everyone showed up. Eyes sharp. Phones off. She dropped the doctored audit on the big screen. Then the original files from the drive. "This is what we leaked," she said, pointing to the doctored copy. "And this," she switched slides, "is what someone tried to make sure we never saw." The missing appendix blinked into view. Project Kestrel, Phase 2 implementation notes. No one spoke. Simone read aloud. Kestrel Phase 2 is intended to extend filtering protocols beyond recruitment, applying predictive modeling to performance review trends, promotion likelihood, and risk of attrition metrics, particularly in underrepresented segments. Jesus, one of her analysts muttered. Simone didn't blink. They weren't just blocking people from entering. They were making sure the ones who made it in never rose, never lasted. She closed the file. This wasn't bias. This was engineered suppression. Top to bottom. Her strategist, Celine, raised her hand slowly. Why leak only part of it then? Why the note? Why the misdirection? Simone's voice was low. Because someone needed us to move fast and loudly, but not see everything. Maybe they wanted to force the board's hand. Maybe they wanted to distract us. Or maybe, she hesitated, maybe someone inside Den's hire still plans to take control. And Lucas? Celine asked. Simone shook her head. I don't know where he is. That night, Simone returned to her apartment to find the lights already on. Lucas stood by the window. His suit was wrinkled, his tie missing. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. She didn't flinch. You disappeared. I had to. Janelle turned the board on me the moment the story hit. She convinced them I staged the leak for personal gain, that I used you to break confidentiality. Simone folded her arms. Did you? He stepped forward, tired but steady. No, but I knew there was more than what I gave you. I knew something was missing. Then why give me the edited file? Because I couldn't trust the real one wasn't poisoned. I thought if we leaked everything at once, we'd lose the signal and the noise. I was wrong. Simone handed him the note. She's suing me, and whoever sent this wants me to go deeper. Lucas read it. His expression tightened. She's trying to cover Kestrel. Why? Because Janelle wasn't just an executive, he said. She was one of the architects of the original protocol. Not just a participant, a designer. Simone's stomach dropped. He continued, voice low. When the board voted me in, she made it clear I was a transitional figure. Someone to absorb the backlash. She was always angling to take the helm after the dust settled. Phase 2, Simone said. Lucas nodded. She's already secured buy-in from 2 of the largest clients. If she takes over, she'll bury this again and spin the audit as a sabotage attempt. Simone's eyes narrowed. Then we don't let her take it. The next morning, Simone walked into the press room of a major business network. She'd declined interviews for weeks. But now she was ready. The journalists started soft. Background, motivation, corporate values. Simone cut her off. I'm not here to talk about disruption. I'm here to talk about sabotage. The room shifted. She slid a folder across the table. The real Kestrel files. Unredacted. There's a deeper story behind the audit leak. A cover-up, engineered by someone who wants to control not just who enters the company, but who survives inside it. She didn't name Janelle. She didn't have to. The footage went viral within hours. Inside Den's Hire, a second walkout began. Shareholders demanded an emergency session. Janelle, now publicly exposed, released a statement calling Simone's claims reckless conspiracy. But within 12 hours, a whistleblower from legal confirmed it. Janelle had suppressed internal dissent, blocked external reviews, and deleted flagged assessments from Phase 2. Her fate was sealed. The board removed her by the end of the week. And Lucas? He declined reinstatement. This isn't mine to finish, he told Simone quietly. It never was. Weeks later, Simone stood outside the new Den's Hire headquarters. A new name on the door. A new leadership slate announced. And in her hand, another black envelope. But this time, it didn't contain threats. Only a single card. No logo. No signature. Just a typed sentence. The floorboards held. But now we rebuild better. She smiled, tucking it into her coat. Across town, True Signal was fielding its 5th major client in 2 weeks. Not because of scandal. Not because of fame. But because of what she built. A place where stories didn't get buried. Simone turned, looking once more at the building that once locked her out. Now it stood open. Transparent. Different. But not because it wanted to be. Because it had no other choice. And Simone, she didn't need a seat anymore. She'd already built the table. And everyone knew exactly who set the fire that changed everything.